This podcast is intended for educational purposes only and is not intended to replace therapeutic services of any kind. Please refer to the list of references provided if you need support. Welcome, everyone, to Sessions with Sara Cate and Ashley. I am Sara Cate.
I'm Ashley.
And today we are going to explore the difference between anxiety and excitement in your body and how they can feel really similar and yet are different. I mean, how many times have you gotten really amped up about something and then after it's over realize I was actually more anxious than I was excited about that thing, or vice versa? Oh, I thought I was super anxious when really I was just like a Stoke level 10 about doing this adventure. And how anxiety and excitement really can be almost go hand in hand, right? Like we can be nervous, anxious about something, but also really excited about it, right? Like they can also be friends to some degree. However, when anxiety moonlights as excitement, that's where it can get sometimes dangerous for us. When Ashley and I were kind of prepping and talking about what we would want to say about this topic, I think the first thing, God, that sounded so Michigan. I heard it in my head,
well, that's okay. It's okay.
I hear it sometimes.
We're both Midwest.
Or Midwesterners, and so it really is, I think, an important conversation to have. It might kind of seem like a pretty milquetoasty conversation after some of the ones we've had to delineate between anxiety and excitement in your body. However, I think why it's important is I think it can really provide us with information around, are we actually in something that is evoking our joy and our excitement, or are we in something that is dysregulating us and bringing up our anxiety? Are we not safe in something that is appearing to be okay for us because it feels like excitement? And the easiest example I can just kind of throw out there is when, let's say, we meet somebody new and we're just like feeling all of these things, and it's almost like your head's going to kind of just like fly off of your body because you're just feeling this electricity and this intensity, and it's like zing, 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 and it's just throwing you essentially out of your body, which we talked about dissociation way back at the beginning of this podcast. And anxiety and dissociation really are one step away from each other. It's easy for us to disassociate when our anxiety becomes so intense. And so people will often say to me, I couldn't even remember what I said to them. I was like an observer, right? I wasn't in my body, and it was just happening. And they're saying it to me as though it was exciting and it was a good thing, when really oftentimes down the road, as things reveal themselves, it's like, oh, it's because I wasn't safe in my body. I had to get out because this person there was something in whatever that exchange was that was highly dysregulating to me. And my anxiety just kind of took me up and out as a protective mechanism. So again, we're here to remind you that having anxiety is not a negative thing. You're not doing something wrong. It's actually just something that is going to tell us in that moment sometimes that something's not right, and I need to adjust, or I need to look at why I'm feeling this. And so we thought it was a conversation worth having to help really differentiate between what excitement, really getting to know and understand the sensations and the sensory world of your excitement and your anxiety.
I think it's like the battle of the century for us who grew up with like the princess fairy tale love stories. Because what that is it's preaching to that anxiety attachment of like two wounds connecting. instead of two nervous systems who are peaceful around each other, which is where the true magic is, folks, is when you can have a nervous system that feels calm and safe and welcomed, and not a nervous system that makes you feel like you are out of body, because it's the one of the common trends that comes up when I'm working with people is the crash that happens when they realize that it was not actually the excitement. It was like the anxiety and like the nervous system wound or the nervous system dysregulation that was attracting them to this person. And then, like Sara Cate said, more things come out. You figure out who this person is. I also think that this is one of those, like, the honeymoon phase thing that people talk about in relationship. And and this, like, yes, can be true for intimate relationships, but also with like friendships. If there's like a really strong
or like work partnerships.
Yeah. Like if there's like a really strong connection, and then it's like the more time you spend, like, obviously then the more you learn about the person and all of that. And then all of a sudden there's like this big, like, fault, this big, like, feels like you kind of like fell off of the cliff of like, oh my God, I didn't see this. How did I not know this person would do this? Blah, 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 all of that stuff. When in all actuality, it was that anxiety, and your body was in this state of like, okay, something's going on here.
Can't find ground.
We're not safe. We can't, like, we don't feel supported. Yeah. Like we don't feel like the ground is underneath us, where there's nothing for us to anchor into. And that feeling of just falling off the cliff of like, that then brings up like what we even talked about in the last episode, is how that you can go into patterns of low self-worth, how that can bring out the shame and all of this, when in all actuality, it's learning to work with your body, learning to understand the difference between the true excitement and the anxiety, because they do feel so similar. And, speaking from the experience of working with clients, and as they navigate that, like, okay, this relationship, whatever kind it was that they were part of, and then it ended, like, usually too, these are the relationships that have more of a tumultuous ending.
And you could say tumultuous beginning when it like, feels so intense, and it's like, oh my God, it's just like, I've never felt this way before. I hear that a lot. And you won't, because this is a new person.
Yeah.
So really, truly, that's a true statement, but it doesn't mean that that's necessarily an anchor thing, but keep going. But to your point, like, to me, the tumultuous endings, when I see it in my work, is often there was a tumultuous beginning.
Totally.
It's hard and fast.
100%. Yeah. 100%. I forgot actually what I was going to say.
But sorry.
No, that's okay. Something about that. But that's like a really good, like, the tumultuous beginning, the tumultuous ending, but the relationships. Oh, I know. When they then, whether it's a new relationship with a friend or coworker, whatever it is, or intimate relationship with a partner, when they then enter into one of those where they can tell there's a difference in how their body is responding to the person. And I've given this personal example multiple times on this podcast as well, of like being with an ex-partner and having, Miss Thang over here tell me, support me.
I would never tell you.
But she supported me in asking like really important questions of what my nervous system felt like when I was lying next to that person.
Yeah.
And that is one of the things, because when you watch it in yourself, or when you feel it happen in yourself, or when you watch somebody go through that, it is one of the most beautiful reclaiming of power that I think I've ever been able to like witness within myself and in the clients that I work with, because then they get it. Then they're like, okay, I can feel this difference in my body. I can feel myself being comfortable moving towards them and having this like openness, this lightness, this expansion within them that doesn't make them feel like I don't even know what I said. It was like, I was just there, like all of those things. It's like, no, I was like so deeply present and so deeply aware of the love and the joy that I was feeling. And that is like,
it's agency. Yeah. Like Ashley always, she's the queen of reclaiming body agency. Plug for one of her incredible programs. Go check it out. You can find her info in our show notes. But I think it's so true. I have a dear client who I've worked with for years now and has really gone through this incredible reclamation of self, of like her agency and her connection to her body. And she recently was in a newer relationship, and she, described it just kind of as we were talking about it. It was like, oh my God, it was so electric, and we were just mind melding, and we were clicking, and it was, so incredible. And about 2 or 3 dates in, she was like, I'm just really curious because I find that I need to drink alcohol when I'm around them. Like we go out and we have drinks. And she's like, I don't really need that in other areas of my life, but for some reason, everything that we do is kind of centered around going out and having some drinks, which alcohol is a depressant, right? So like I always call it like to some degree a brake pedal for our anxiety. So think how many times
until the next day.
Oh yeah, exactly. And then it ramps it right up. But like our anxiety, so people who have social anxiety, we see it a lot that they utilize alcohol to numb some of that anxious energy. And so, for her, it was actually kind of that like click into her own brain of like, oh shit, I don't know that this is excitement. I actually think that I am kind of overriding a little bit of the anxiety that I feel around this person. And then of course, as time kind of went on, and I always say like, we don't know until we know. And we're collecting data points. So every time you're around that person, or every time you're engaging in that activity, see what you feel, see what you notice. And again, anxiety is not bad. Like a person is not bad if your nervous system is anxious around them. It's just information for you to say, okay, how can I ask for something different? And if the partner or the person or the thing you can adjust and is willing to kind of renegotiate that, because let's be real, all of us out here in the world are kind of running around with some attachment trauma, and that breeds either an anxious nervous system, an avoidant nervous system. We all have some degree and some flavor of that. And so to find a completely safe person 100% without having to do any work is a little unlikely. It's a very lofty expectation, but to notice like, okay, I am feeling anxious, and I bring that to this person and I say, hey, I'm noticing, this is coming up for me. And the person can say, wow, I didn't even realize that I do that, or I didn't realize I was contributing to that, or, hey, why don't we do this? Let's try that. That can also be repair for your nervous system. So anxiety doesn't mean you need to get the hell out right away, immediately. It is something though for you to pay attention. And that's what my client did. She paid attention. She was like, oh, wow, yep, we are only going out for drinks, and I don't feel fine just being around this person. And so as time went on, the dragon reared its ugly head. This person revealed who they were. And she was like, yeah, I can't do this. And, and the turnaround time for her was 4 months compared to 2 years, compared to 6 months. And that is why this work is so important, and that we have to practice it, because even if you start today noticing the difference between anxiety and excitement in your nervous system, it's going to take a while to really, really, really have that nuanced experience dialed in. And a new nervous system is going to give you new information about your anxiety and your excitement. And it's coming into that curious kind of exploratory way of being with your body, where it's like, I don't actually let me see how I feel about this, which also takes some of the pressure off of you having to know, right? Like, cause I think Ashley and I talk about this a lot. Like it can go into the shame channel very quickly that you should have known, that you should have seen it, that you should have been better prepared. Like let's say you have a pattern in relationship. that it gets really easy to shame ourselves and click ourselves into some patterns of low self-worth functioning when we say, oh, see, look at me, I chose the same partner again, or I chose the same thing again, or I did the same thing to my body. Right. And we can get into this rhetoric that we're bad, that we were wrong, that we should have known better, when in actuality, we won't know better until we start to pay attention and start to listen to how our body is telling us this is going on. Now, for me, because of my lived experiences, anxiety runs strong in my DNA. It's a part of my generational trauma. So it's something I've had to really work on with my therapist and with my own body to understand. And then I've had life experiences in my own existence that have created anxiety specifically around partnership, right? I've talked about the fact that I'm divorced. And so anxiety for me is going to be very easy to experience in partnership. And so this is something I think I offer as encouragement to say, again, not all anxiety is that this person is bad for you. It could just be, and I had to do a lot of work, especially when I started, when I got into a relationship with my partner, I had to really sit down and differentiate, is his nervous system causing my nervous system to get anxious, or is my relational trauma coming up in the face of being in relationship again, right? And that's what's causing my anxiety. And so this is where it's important for us to develop the relationship with ourselves first, and to understand how anxiety shows up in our body and excitement in our body first, so we can delineate, okay, it isn't necessarily this person, or I can bring this if the person is quote unquote safe, I can kind of bring them in and say, hey, I'm noticing some of my stuff coming up. I need to take care of this, or this isn't about you, or, hey, could you maybe do X, Y, or Z? Because that actually helps me kind of find some ground again. So it becomes a working conversation then with your partner, if they are not necessarily causing your nervous system to dysregulate. And there are instances where that person, whoever they are, again, not a bad person because they cause your nervous system to trigger some dysregulation and some high anxiety. It's just that they might not be, if they're not willing to take ownership of their own journey and their own process with you in that dynamic, then it's for you to determine, do I really want to continue to feel like this in this relationship?
Yeah. And I think exactly like what she just said is, we all have to be willing to take ownership over our own journey and our process through this. And, like when I think back to really, well, the last 2 years has been like the big, huge journey with like me and my anxiety. And to be honest, it wasn't until 2021 that I recognized that like, oh, I have anxiety and I have had this my entire life. I mean, and then it like makes so much sense. Like this is wild. Like when I was in second grade, I gave myself hives from going to school, and like didn't, in my head, I felt awful going to school every day. I cried every day. But not until I recognized like what anxiety truly was, and to understand that I didn't do anything to like cause it. Yeah. But that I have had this journey of like, okay, these feelings that I was feeling my whole entire life were very real and deserved attention, and they deserved compassion and love and care. And even though I didn't get the support I needed during that time, I am now in charge. I now have the power. Yes. I now have the capability to move forward in a way that I want to move forward. And it doesn't mean, like, I talk a lot with my clients about being a friend to your body. And in friendships, there are often times where there's a conflict that comes up, and it's about the repair of the conflict. It's not that you get in a fight and you leave, right? Or I think about like the relationship with my sister, like we'll fight like crazy. And then the next day we're like, we've figured it out. You know what I mean? It's like that repair can happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what builds a stronger relationship. And so it's not that when I think about me having this anxiety or me entering into partnerships where it was like Sara Cate said, like, oh, I went with that same partner again, or like I picked the same kind of person, just in a different body. It's not shame. It's compassion for that person who was not resourced the way they needed to be resourced and who didn't have the things that she needed in order to have the agency over herself. And that's where the real, now when I experience excitement, now when I experience relationship with somebody where my nervous system, like with Sara Cate, where my nervous system is like, I don't have to worry about what I say if I'm feeling a certain way. She's not going to like slam doors in my face, right? She's going to provide a space and we're going to have a conversation about it. And I'm not like jumping through the roof to try to get away from all of this energy that's flowing through me. And it, you know, like, I think the both of us, we've been so open about like sharing our experience with clients, but also like our personal experience. And I think one of the things that it's like, it can serve as like a, okay, we're proof, right? That like, this is a journey and there is that we can be on the journey and like continually discovering new information about ourselves and continually recognizing why it's so worth it. And it's so enriching to like learn this information about yourself and that it can change, that it doesn't have to be just because your past was your past, the future doesn't have to be the same.
Oh, right. Like it's an ever evolving process.
Yes.
That it absolutely requires consistent learning. You know, something that we talked about in the relationship episode was that like your needs are going to change as you change. And so for even with that example that I used of my client, you know, while this person had a familiar nervous system pattern that like wound hers up, she was able to recognize it sooner and learn something else about her because even in this one, the package that this one came in was more aligned. Like it was closer to, you know, so she wasn't wrong. She wasn't off in choosing to kind of explore this as an opportunity. And there was still enough here that caused her anxiety to be at an all-time high. And also that person wasn't necessarily willing to do the work with her in relationship. And so it just wasn't going to be a fit. But she, taking that information, then integrated it and was like, I'm not going to stay. And I know myself well enough now to know that I can't tolerate this. And so she could gracefully kind of exit, which is where the tumultuous change kind of does happen, where it's like, I'm actually just going to say, this isn't for me. And I need to reassess, you know, back out. And the beauty in that is then now she's got all of this new information. So she can go forward. Yes, still working this out. Yes, still exercising this new muscle, but with more information. And so giving again an invitation here to just start to explore how anxiety shows up in your body, because again, there's different degrees of anxiety, right? Like we can have our anxiety based off of the person or the thing that we're doing, because like if you're going to give a speech, if you're going to get on stage, you're going to have a natural anxiety. If you're going to a social situation, you're going to have some natural anxiety. Anything new, we have a natural anxiety. And then there's the potential internal world anxiety that maybe we were given through our biology and our DNA, right? Or for instance, I have a lot of clients, I work a lot with traumatic brain injuries and chronic pain and a lot of that comes from car accidents. So I have a lot of clients who they get into the car and they have an anxiety based off of lived experience that says, I'm not safe in a vehicle because I've been in these car accidents, right? So there's that anxiety also that lives there. And so this is where we get to play around with our sensations, because were you thinking about yourself? I saw your smirk. I saw your smirk. Ashley definitely has car trauma.
Oh, tires, man. Tires freak me out.
Yeah. So, oh, that was so funny. So being able to differentiate between those anxieties is also helpful. And so I even said to Ashley at the beginning of this, I would really love to offer up an in-podcast sensory experience around excitement in your body and anxiety in your body. So what I'm going to do here, if you're not interested in exploring this in your body right now, if it doesn't feel accessible or available to you, I encourage you just to fast forward a few minutes. It'll probably be 2-3 minutes at length, nothing much more than that, and just kind of jump forward. Also, if you want to revisit this, this can be done in a number of different ways. We have the tracking sheets linked to a couple of the show note episodes. We can do it for this one as well. So you can maybe go back, maybe print those off and then come back to this part of the podcast. I don't know what minute it will be. We'll put it in the show notes.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes for you. What minute this is, but to start to explore the difference between excitement and anxiety in your body. And then I encourage you to kind of take this and expand on it with we talked about jealousy in the last episode. You could do it for that.
You could do it for anything.
You could do it for anything, any emotion, any experience. And then because for me, I have to work with my different anxieties. I have to figure out, okay, this one's in my belly. Okay, this one causes a constriction in my chest and my breathing. Okay. And like, when do I feel myself leaving? Right. Like there's all these different layers, and they're really in response to different things. And so this is where we start to just we're going to scratch the surface on how you feel these things in your body. So I invite you to take a comfortable seat, whatever that means for you. Maybe you're on the floor, maybe you're in bed, or even if you're driving, just kind of like soften best you can your muscles into whatever seat is kind of holding you right now. If you're actively doing something, I just invite you to maybe take a moment to sit down and utilize this exercise from a more kind of supported space, just so you can feel something underneath you. So always the first thing to do is to notice how you're supported. So what does the material feel like that you're sitting in? What does the chair feel like that you're sitting in? Are you on the ground? Can you feel whatever is supporting you coming up to meet your body, rather than your body having to ask the chair or the ground to hold you? Can you just notice that ability to soften ever so slightly into, okay, yeah, I'm supported here. So first noticing the layers of support. And then when you can really recognize you're being held or supported, moving into that internal world a little bit, just to recognize and see what might be swimming there. Curiosity, maybe some anticipation of where this is going. And notice maybe 1 or 2 sensations that come up with that. Is there like an energizing experience somewhere in your body, or is there a little bit of maybe turnover in your stomach? Maybe you're noticing a heat somewhere in your body, maybe your hands, or maybe the impulse to swallow, or you're noticing a constriction in your jaw, whatever it might be that comes with kind of anticipation. And then I want to invite you to notice perhaps a memory or an experience that you can recall where you felt joy. And this can be all the way back to childhood. Maybe it's a core memory or excitement, right? Like for a party or an event, or excitement around a person maybe coming to visit, or you going to see, or maybe it was the start of something new, like an excitement of an anticipation of something new that felt really nourishing, exciting, good, joyful, open, alive, right? Like it was a good thing. And again, taking tenderness with your heart if it's hard to recall something or it's hard to go towards that. But see if you can, and even if it's just like, some people really get excited about sleeping. So even if it's something as simple as going towards like, oh, I can't wait to feel relief or relaxation. And how do you notice that excitement in your body? Where can you feel it? Where does it start? Where does the sensation start? Where does it end? How big is it? Where is it in your body? Does it move? And just see if you can kind of be curious about how you experience that and hold that kind of sensation just loosely. And we're going to move now into anxiety a little bit. So again, dipping your toes in ever so slightly, recognizing you're held by the chair or the ground or whatever seat you're in. We've had this kind of slow experience with excitement, but anxiety, how anxiety might show up. So let's go with something seemingly benign or not super intense. So maybe it is anxiety about a new job or a new friendship, or perhaps it's an anxiety around like, oh, I have to get from here to here in a really short period of time today, whatever it might be. And where do you notice that? Where do you notice that kind of like that intake of breath or energy or holding, or maybe it's kind of a fast movement somewhere in your body? Is it sharp? Is it tight? And where is it? Is it in your belly? Is it in your spine? Is it in your legs? Do you feel the impulse to take action? So also noticing that, however that shows up, notice what kind of your thoughts might start to race or rush towards, and returning just a little bit to, okay, and excitement feels a little bit different because it feels like this. Going back towards what it feels like to really feel joy and hope. And maybe if it had a temperature, go back to that temperature. If it had a shape, maybe go back to that shape of excitement. Or maybe where in your body you felt excitement. Let's say it was your heart. Can you go back into the heart space a little bit while also still acknowledging and recognizing we're having some of an experience with this anxiety as well, wherever that might be in your body. So moving back and forth ever so gently between those two things, also still then recognizing I'm in this chair, I'm in this space, I am supported. And just kind of playing with how you can notice the different textures, the different shapes, the different feelings, the different energy, the different locations even of these two things. Does excitement settle you in your body at all? Does it anchor you in your body at all? Can you feel more connected to your own experience and excitement? Does anxiety feel further away? Does it take you away from your body? These are all just like subtle things to explore. Again, endlessly curious, never with a judgment, the best that we can. And then just kind of moving ourselves back out into our curiosity, our thoughts, maybe of like, this is interesting, I'm exploring, trying to figure this out, whatever it might be. And then moving your attention out again to the chair that you're in, the space that you're in, the environment that you're in. And then when you feel ready, opening your eyes and just taking a look around the room. I invite you to turn your head potentially to the right or the left. That kind of helps create some orientation for your nervous system. And with whatever information, came up for you in that, whatever curiosity or concern or opportunity to kind of explore that sensory world around excitement and anxiety, however it presented itself to you, to recognize like it's yours. Mm-hmm. And it is, anybody can say we can like put these things in a box and categorize them, and we really can't, because it is so subjective to who you are. And so I just invite you to get curious about it and journal about it, or have a conversation with your therapist about it, or your community about it. Like, how do you experience this? Mm-hmm. Right. And get kind of, let it be an exploration for you to find some new information out about yourself, and how to better support yourself then, and how to make different choices once you have this information.
Yeah. I think that was a really lovely place to stop. Okay. Place to end today. The endless curiosity, never judgment.
Yeah.
Endless curiosity, never judgment. And letting something hold you up, letting something meet you. Mm-hmm. when you're working with these more uncomfortable feelings, and even in the comfortable ones too, because it gives you a place to anchor into. So use that. I use that a lot with almost all of my clients. Mm-hmm. So as always, we appreciate you sharing this. We appreciate you being here with us, and we will see you in the next session. Bye. Bye.